EGM Network.
Well, hey, good afternoon, folks. This is Bill Crafton from Sir Paladin, and today we're going to take a look at how safe is nuclear energy to create electricity for the United States of America. And once again, Jesse James is here from Evergreen Media, folks. Right there, that's the guy. He's the best. He actually came back short of his vacation because I never leave home without my American Express. And I won't do a podcast without Jesse. So he's back here helping me out, as usual. He does a great job.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, this is podcast number 7. In 1953, who wore number 7, Jesse? You've been doing your homework?
1953, number 7? I don't know.
How about Joe DiMaggio?
Joe DiMaggio.
Okay, I'll give you another one. How about 1965? Center fielder Reggie Smith. Come on, Jesse.
Wow, Reggie
you got to bone
Smith.
up on these Red Sox guys.
Of course, yes.
Hey, everybody, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican, and this is an American. I'm an American. The goal of my goal is to come up with the truth and give you just the facts. I look at political parties, and from my perspective, they divide us, they separate us. We can get along real well until it comes to politics or religion for some reason, then we go crazy. So it's really, really bad. So as America, we deserve better from the political system. And one of my favorite sayings is Ronald Reagan on the Shining City, which is America.
I've spoken of the Shining City all my political life, but I don't know if I ever quite communicated what I saw when I said it. But in my mind, it was a tall, proud city built on rocks stronger than oceans, windswept, God-blessed, and teeming with people of all kinds living in harmony and peace. A city with free ports that hummed with commerce and creativity. And if there had to be city walls, the walls had doors, and the doors were open to anyone with the will and the heart to get here. That's how I saw it and see it still.
Statement from Ronald Reagan kind of touches my heart. I think that was his last televised statement as president, and that was his goodbye speech, so to speak. But what he said there, I think he meant it. And I look forward to America returning back to those days of Ronald Reagan, okay, and having some compassion for people in the country. Basically, the next thing we're going to take a look at is the what I call global warming.
Yeah, so here's the global warming map.
You have seen this before. It's from NASA, and it will demonstrate what fossil fuels are doing to our world and our country. When it gets real red at the end, everybody should know pollution is very, very bad, and the globe is warming up. And you live in Florida, and ice melts in Antarctica, the Arctic. The water's going to flow into Florida, and it's going to flood the beaches, which we've had some experience of that already in St. Lucie County recently. Okay, so this podcast is going to review the safety of nuclear energy. So my question that I asked myself, how safe is nuclear energy? And we're going to look into it. And from my perspective, it's safe all the time until it's not. Okay, and the first thing we're going to take a look at is Chernobyl in the Soviet Union at the time, in April of 1986.
Take a look at this photo, and then this one. These images capture the before and after of the devastating Chernobyl disaster in Ukraine, which released 400 times more radioactive material than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. It happened in the early hours of April 26, 1986. Technicians at the plant attempted a poorly designed experiment, disabling critical power regulating and emergency safety systems. At 1:23 a.m., a series of explosions tore through reactor 4, blowing off its lid and and spewing radioactive material into the atmosphere. Initially, the Soviet government tried to cover up the incident, but when Swedish monitoring systems detected unusual spikes in radioactivity, the Soviets were forced to admit to the catastrophe. The immediate toll included the deaths of approximately 50 people, but the long-term effects exposed thousands to harmful radiation levels. Over 100,000 residents within an 18-mile radius were evacuated, leaving behind these ghost towns frozen in time. Today, scientists estimate that the reactor site of Chernobyl will remain uninhabitable for nearly 20,000 years due to persistent radiation, and the broader exclusion zone unlivable for over 3,000 years. If you want to better understand nuclear power, visit the resources below to dive deeper.
So with that Chernobyl accident, if you took the power plant and you drew a big circle around it, 12 miles all the way around, that's dead space, dead zone. Nobody can live there. It's too contaminated. And basically that's going to be good for 1,000 years at best. So it's a real nightmare when nuclear energy does not work. And there's something coming up we can look at that accident in the control room.
So this is footage that you saw in the control room at the time. There's Chernobyl.
So these are actually films that were taken in real time in the control room, and you can see how bad that accident was. And it gets worse just trying to get it cleaned up to the point where they can tolerate the situation around that plant and stop the radiation from destroying everything. And then we're moving on to the next one, Jesse.
All right, this is the 60 minutes
60-minute
review on Chernobyl. Yeah.
Some tragedies never end. Ask people to name a nuclear disaster, and most will probably point to Fukushima in Japan 3 years ago. The nuclear meltdown at Chernobyl in Ukraine was 30 years ago, but the crisis is still with us today. That's because radiation virtually never dies. After the explosion in 1986, the Soviets built a primitive sarcophagus, a tomb, to cover the stricken reactor, but it wasn't meant to last very long, and it hasn't. Engineers say there's still enough radioactive material in there to cause widespread contamination. For the last 5 years, a massive project has been underway to seal the reactor permanently. But the undertaking is $750 million short, and the completion date has been delayed repeatedly. 30 years later, Chernobyl's crippled reactor still has the power to kill.
Back in 2014, they spent $2 billion just kind of stabilize the situation, okay? And it didn't get that done until like 2019. And then they had to do some additional work, which you're going to see now.
Since the strike, which Ukraine blames on Russia, the International Atomic Energy Agency has warned of mounting safety concerns. Last week, the UN watchdog completed a full assessment. Its findings are stark.
The mission confirmed that the new safe confinement, NSC, had lost its primary safety functions, including the confinement capability.
The structure was put in place in 2016 and designed to last at least a century. It has been crucial in stabilizing the site. The IAEA stresses that the strike did not cause permanent damage to the Arch's load-bearing frame or its monitoring systems, but the agency says a major overhaul is now unavoidable.
Obviously, that was a massive engineering design. Basically, that cover over the reactor had to be built so you could actually have inside a 30-story apartment building or high-rise, 30 stories. That's what actually fit in there because they couldn't take the chimney down because it was so contaminated. So that was quite a thing. And we're going to take a look at when people in positions don't follow technical guidance and what can happen next.
All right. So this is on the Fukushima disaster,
No,
right,
we're
Bill?
going to NASA.
NASA. Okay.
Yeah.
NASA. Very good. Here we go.
25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Can I talk over this? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I watched this live, I was in Boston at the time in 99 High Street, and I went down at lunchtime around 11 o'clock, and I watched this take off. It was a first-hand experience. Was absolutely incredible. Couldn't believe what happened.
Engines beginning throttling down now at 94%. Normal throttles for most of the flight, 104%. We'll throttle down to 65% shortly. Engines at 65%, 3 engines running normally, 3 good fuel cells, 3 good APUs. Velocity 2,257 feet per second. Altitude 4.3 nautical miles, downrange distance 3 nautical miles.
So the 25th Space Shuttle mission is now on the way after more delays than NASA cares to count. This morning, it looked as though they were not going to be able to get off.
Okay.
1 minute 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second.
That's good,
Altitude
Jesse.
9 nautical miles. Downrange distance 7 nautical miles.
You want to cut that off, Jess?
All right, yeah.
Thank you. Hey, the problem was there's a big debate that morning about the engineering company that designed the O-rings and the bureaucrats at NASA. And the bureaucrats overrode the engineering. The engineer says, don't go, it's too cold. We're probably the O-rings are probably going to fail. We don't recommend you doing that. But the bureaucrats, okay, which run the country basically, said, no, we're going. Now, why do you think they went? Well, Christy McCauley was on that flight, as it turns out, and we were going to have a lesson in space from Christy McCauley, the first person that wasn't truly an astronaut. And what happened was Ronald Reagan was going to do his State of the Union message that night, and I suspect the bureaucrat knew that and wanted him to have some lines in there that he could talk about how the space program's improving and we got a teacher in space. So anyway, some bureaucrat made a decision. I don't think Ronald Reagan had any idea what was going on. And basically, they canceled the State of the Union, okay, and we had like a week off to mourn the loss of the astronauts and Christy McCauley. So then the next thing we're going to bring up, I thought, was Fukushima, Jesse?
Sure, yeah. You want to show the Fukushima
jump
clip?
into that, yeah.
Yeah, here we go.
I didn't know they were going to be headed for a meltdown in less than 24 hours.
The country was in complete chaos, and they have this situation at the Fukushima nuclear power plant.
当時その波が起こって全交流電源喪失ですけれど青春ブラックアウト
Cooling systems have failed, and some radiation has leaked. This could be a catastrophe in the making.
Chernobyl involved 1 reactor. Fukushima involved 6.
何としても命がけでこの状況を抑えない限りは日本の国が成立しなくなる。
話し終わったすぐ後に4号機の爆発が起きてしまった。
空から放射性物質が我々のいるところに降ってきた。
戦争行くみたいな。
犠牲になってもやらなくちゃいけないことはあるわけで、
これで家族ともちゃんとお別れできたなっていうふうに思いましたね。
いきなり上がるやっぱり。酸素が足りなくなったり。
あ、遅かった。
So on this disaster, there was 164,000 residents permanently, temporarily displaced. There was no adverse conditions in terms of health care. The tsunami came in and everybody ran to high ground before the nuclear reactor started blowing up. And so they were out of range, so to speak, for getting damage from the accident, which in a way it caused the accident in a way it was lucky it did because a lot of people survived without getting radiation poisoning. Currently today, 143 square miles of land are basically in the what is called a restricted zone. I mean, nobody can live there, okay? So if you own property in that area, 143 square miles, you're out of luck. And by the way, I don't think that includes the Pacific Ocean, so that's open to what it is, okay? And we'll move to the next one.
Power is lost. Cooling systems fail. By March 12th, Reactor 1 explodes. 2 days later, Reactor 2 melts down and Reactor 3 erupts. 164,000 residents are evacuated. A 12-mile exclusion zone is enforced. Homes, schools, entire towns left behind. The plant was built too close to the sea, and its backup generators, crucial for cooling, were installed in low-lying areas, vulnerable to flooding, leading to this deadly disaster. The cleanup, still ongoing, estimated to take 30 to 40 years.
The people here that were interviewed survived the accident, and like all these other places, you know, they got guidelines, they don't follow them. They cut corners. You can't trust them to do the right thing because of whatever the reasons are. And, you know, that leads to tremendous accidents. Okay, and we saw that with the O-rings with the Challenger. It blew up, and it blew up because, you know, the experts saying, hey, don't do it. And some bureaucrats said, no, we're going forward with this. And that's exactly what happened in Fukushima. Now, Fukushima and Chernobyl, they're on HBO Max. And I highly recommend you watching them because they're very, very well done. And if you don't know how bad nuclear accidents can be, how bad they can get, how it can destroy everything basically forever, at least for your lifetime for sure, then you'll see it real time. They do an excellent job. Quite impressed with it. Speaking of nuclear, the U.S. Department of Energy has agreed to loan Constellation Energy basically $1.5 billion to restart 3 Mile Island. And that's which kind of got me off on this thing, because 3 Mile Island is like 50 years old, built in 74, something like that. So I make it like in the 50 plus, right? And they get this loan, but neither the Energy Department or Constellation Company has released items of the loan. The president says no subsidies to energy companies should be done. And I look at this and I ask myself, is this a $1.5 billion subsidy to the energy companies? Maybe we could hear what the president says about subsidizing energy, Jesse.
All right.
They don't work without subsidy. You don't want energy that needs subsidy. Energy is a good business. You don't need subsidy.
Yeah, well, you know, when I look at that, I got to figure Chris Wright is the Secretary of Energy. Now, Chris Wright's background is, he's a fracking guy, you know. I don't think he's in for clean energy by any way whatsoever. So he's doing big gas jobs and making tons of money selling, you know, basically natural gas. And I don't think the president's getting good advice from these guys, because obviously he come out and said, you know, we shouldn't be subsidizing this, and we'll put out $1.5 billion after they spent $1 billion shutting the place down. They spent $1 billion to shut that reactor down in 1919. Now we're going to spend $1.5 billion to reactivate. So it's kind of strange how all that works out in the end, I guess. So 3 Mile Island coming up.
Yeah.
Unit 2 on 3 Mile Island never reopened, and $1 billion were spent on cleaning the damage. The plant's Unit 1, which was unaffected directly by the happenings in 1979, closed in 2019 and is currently undergoing an extended decommissioning process.
Hey, on 3 Mile Island, I think we really dodged a bullet here anyway, so it could have been a lot worse. There was a bubble to form, a hydrogen bubble in the reactor, and it didn't blow. Had it blown, you could look at Chernobyl. We could have been a Chernobyl-type accident. So it was a terrible thing that happened, and they shut it down. The core temperatures actually reached 4,300 degrees Fahrenheit in that in unit number 2 that melted down. They eventually evacuated 140,000 Americans from the local area. And like I said, the hydrogen bubble didn't go off. And we got one more on 3 Mile Island coming
Yeah,
up.
this is
to
from
show you.
Walter Cronkite at the time.
Here
Walter
is the peril
Cronkite
they're
guy. I should have
faced
put
with.
that in my notes.
The
All right,
situation
Jason. Good
inside
job.
the nuclear reactor is stable for the moment, but fraught with danger. One helpful element, the longer the catastrophe is delayed, the less likely it may be to occur at all. Some of the 177 uranium fuel rods in the core are damaged, perhaps a quarter of the core. Temperature is far higher than normal for a shutdown reactor, up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. As long as the rods remain immersed in cooling water, the situation is under control. But at the top of the reactor vessel, a bubble has formed, radioactive gas. The only vent is manually operated, certain death for anyone who tried to open it. The bubble is still well clear of the fuel rods, but to cool the reactor down, engineers must reduce the pressure. Inevitably, as the pressure drops, the bubble must expand. The hope is to release the bubble through the cooling system. But if it is not released, it can block the flow of cooling water and uncover the tops of the fuel rods. That's when the rods, deprived of coolant, could overheat and rupture or melt down. If they're still hot enough, they could melt right through the floor of the reactor vessel. If enough hot nuclear fluid suddenly hit the water in the containment building, there could be a sudden, violent steam explosion, perhaps violent enough to blow out the walls of the building, scattering radioactive debris into the environment.
Walter Cronkite, in my lifetime, the most trusted man in news right there. He was unbelievable. He give you the straight facts. You know, they weren't trying to cover anything up. They weren't trying to accommodate the government. Straight facts. And you can see how bad, as he described it, that really was. And with that, I'm going to move to a few closing remarks here. Renee Good and Alex Preddy, lest we not forget them, which a lot goes on. And things are forgotten rapidly, but it's a terrible thing, what happened to these people, and I haven't heard that anything's been done to pursue any prosecution against any of the folks that did it to them, so, which is really too bad. Hopefully somebody will wake up and smell the roses and do their job in the Department of Justice. You know, no justice in the Department of Justice, unfortunately. HBO Max, I mentioned a little earlier, Chernobyl and Fukushima. It's definitely available. Highly recommend that you do watch it. I mentioned that Chris Wright is a fracking guy, and then we got Doug Burgum, the Secretary of Interior. He's also in the mining business. He was a governor in North Dakota when they had big successes with windmills, but he likes coal instead, I guess. Once again, I think the president's really getting some bad advice, and as in Interior Department is going to fast track oil, gas, and mining projects being led by Doug Burgum. The Trump administration is significantly going to reduce environmental reviews before permitting drilling and mining projects on public lands and federal waters. And effectively, with the nuclear reactors, they're already reducing requirements to build new nuclear reactors and maintenance requirements of them. They're changing all the requirements, which are all being done under the covers. Nobody's paying attention. And the more safety requirements we remove, the better chance we have for a terrible accident. And the government shutdown, going back to Renee Good with the ICE, the brown, what I call the federal brown shirts. The government shut down all kinds of lines in the airport. And that's because the Republicans, the president does not want these people to wear an ID badge. And doesn't want, and he wants them to wear a mask. I mean, as Americans, I think we deserve better, right, from our law enforcement officers, right? Yeah. My God, it's unbelievable. And the other thing along those lines, I don't know why TSA at the airports is not funded by the airlines. Because when you think what's going on there, it's only there to serve the people that are flying and the airlines. So why we have to shut it down is like crazy to me. So that's my thought on that. And my closing remark, President declares war on clean energy. On day one of his presidency, basically he signed a whole bunch of executive orders, and he's attacked things that were in place, like the windmills off North Carolina and New Jersey area. that are out in the water. We saw, if you watched the previous show, you would have seen the windmills on that what China's doing in the water, and those work. But basically now, I don't know he's getting the money. He wants to spend $1 billion, give these guys $1 billion and say, just walk away from the project, guys. This is crazy. Clean energy, cheap energy, the cheapest you can get when the wind's blowing, man. It's unbelievable. And he wants to buy them out for $1 billion and say, go away. So I can't. He's got to be getting bad advice. He's a businessman. He's got to be smarter than this. My God,
And with the windmills, we wouldn't have to rely on Middle East oil.
Middle East oil? We don't have to rely on any oil.
Yeah.
Basically, for making electricity, right? We could cover the entire state of Florida, all the roofs with solar panels. For God, and we would never have to build anything. Right. And collect it from the sun. It's free. And, our president, he wants to bring down the cost of everything, right? And I would think no one's telling him it's free. Maybe he doesn't know. Plus all the manufacturing jobs we could create and the maintenance jobs we could create. He's big into making jobs. That's what he's been running on, but I don't see it. Yeah. Well, anyway, I told Jesse I would get this done in 30 minutes or less. I made him a promise.
You did it.
Did I deliver, Jesse?
Absolutely.
Okay, pal. Thank you so much.
All right. Yeah. I want to remind everyone, this is a very important podcast. This is important for everyone to see. So please forward this podcast to every contact you have. The midterm elections are critical to the survival of our country. The podcast should be treated as a chain letter, and the messages in the podcast need to be viewed by millions of eyeballs. So let's get the ball rolling to restore dignity and respect in our country. Thank you from Bill and myself. You can email the show, wakeupamerica@gmail.com. All right. Thanks a lot, Bill. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll have a new show.
See you next week.
Next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. All right. We'll see you then.